Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to 11s with Lisa. It is a break time, a traditional 11 o'clock break to have a cup of tea or coffee. I'm having coffee today. And I've drank almost all of it. It's almost gone. And maybe a bite to eat. Talk about genealogy, one of our favorite topics. And today I've got an important topic to me. I hope it is to you too. I know many of you have been saying that you have Irish ancestry, maybe a brick wall with your Irish ancestry. And even if you don't have Irish ancestry, I think you're going to pick up some great brick wall strategies today. That's my hope for you. So this week, I'm taking you on a bit of a genealogical journey, my journey. And it's one that this line of my family crosses the pond to Ireland, but I haven't gotten there yet. I just know that they're from Ireland. And I first learned about Michael Lynch and Margaret Scully, who are my great-great-grandparents, from my grandmother. Now, my grandmother, her husband, my grandfather, his, I guess, great-grandparents are Michael and Margaret. So she didn't know a whole lot about the family. But back in about 2000, I had an opportunity to sit down with my great aunt. And she was telling me that, she was, nearly 90 years old at the time. And she told me this story that Michael Lynch had been a groom, a horse groom, and that Margaret came from a fairly well-to-do family and that somehow they eloped to America.
Yeah, he was a groom.
Ah.
And they eloped. And I don't know where they came in, but we didn't find them in New York.
So you didn't know which port they came in? Or?
I think they came in through Canada.
You know, I was reading in a book that a lot of people did, and then they just came down because the border was open all the time.
And, and a lot of them couldn't get through, and then when you did get to New York, there was so much illness.
And of course, actually, it wasn't America, it was Canada. That was her theory because nobody had ever found passenger lists for this couple. So a few years later, after Aunt Bee's passing, I got in touch with some distant Lynch relatives just through my online research. And they were back in Wisconsin. And those branches of the Lynch family had known Margaret. And because Michael had passed away, probably 28 years, I think, before, or almost 30 years before Margaret did. So they had known her, they had information, and it seemed like that was an even more accurate source because I have come to find out that a few things that Aunt Bee had weren't quite right, but there's always a kernel of truth in there somewhere. So these distant relatives, they mentioned to me the village of Kildesart, though it was really unclear whether that was where Michael was from or where Margaret was from. I knew it was something I had to look into. They were sort of sketchy on the parents' names, and they had basically family lore, and I think there was one death certificate maybe from Michael that they had obtained. So they thought that Margaret's parents were supposedly James or maybe Joseph, but probably James, because I know my Aunt Bee told me that she called him Jim. So that kind of confirmed the James theory that they had. So James or Joseph Lynch and Bridget Madigan, that those would have been Margaret's parents. And that Michael's were maybe Michael Lynch and possibly Johanna Healy, but that was even more sketchy and unsure. So I searched extensively. I wasn't able to find a passenger list. I did find the family in East Farmington, Wisconsin. That's where they had a dairy farm. So my burning question has been, who were Margaret Scully's parents and where in Ireland were they? Where was she born? Where did they live? So Aunt Bee had said County Cork. She was adamant it was County Cork. But the Wisconsin cousins were sure, absolutely sure it was Limerick. And they produced an obituary from Fargo, North Dakota, where she ended up passing away. She was living with her son, John, in 1929. And it said Limerick. So I became more confident with that source than kind of the hearsay from my interview with my aunt. So I started focusing on Limerick. A secondary question that would have been a bonus question to answer would have been, where were Michael and Margaret married? Because with this family lore of the elopement, that seemed like a really interesting thing to determine. Was it in Ireland or was it in America, in Wisconsin? And as you heard my aunt say, she thought that they eloped, but was that true? And did any of her brothers and sisters come to America? That was just something I was thinking about. But I am no expert on Irish genealogy research, and I've interviewed a lot of people over the years, and you would think I would have just jumped right in, but actually I found it kind of daunting. So earlier this month, I sat down for a 45-minute consultation with Kate Ekman. Now, she's a professional genealogist at Legacy Tree Genealogist, and she specializes in many areas, but one is Irish research. And as a seasoned genealogist who wants to do research, I want to do it myself, but I need some help on a particular research question. This idea of a 45-minute consultation was perfect for me because it could kind of jumpstart, tell me where to look, what are some of the key resources I'm going to be tapping into, and kind of give me an action plan. And that's what we really need in order to kind of move forward. So before I share the consult with you, I want to talk for just a moment about how you can help an expert help you get the most out of a consultation. Whether you're doing a big professional project they're doing hundreds of hours, or whether it's just this 45 minutes together. First thing is to be clear about what you want to accomplish. That sounds easy, but it's actually not that easy. It's only 45 minutes, so one key research question is really best. It needs to be really clear and it needs to be defined. And that was a challenge. I had to really think about it, because I have a lot of different questions, but I really wanted to focus on where Margaret and Michael were from. Did they come over together? But most importantly, who were her parents? That's what I wanted to know. It just can't be, I just want to find whatever I want to find. I don't know where to start. Well, you could do a consult on just where to start, how to get going, but I think having that question is so critical. Second, gather what you have in advance. So they're going to do like a pre-questionnaire kind of a thing, and that's great. That'll prompt you to think about it, but gather it all together. I made a folder in Dropbox and I started putting copies of all the important documents. I didn't have a lot, but I made every effort to distill down the known facts and identify the sources that I had. Many of my sources were family lore, so that was a challenge. But in order to get the most from a consultation, it's really important to be able to convey to the person who's trying to help you, what's the strength of the source that this came from? Was it a primary source? What is a secondary source? Was this in the obituary, or was this just something that somebody said? That makes a difference in how you weight the information. And I focused on what I have that provides any clues regarding my specific question. I didn't bog her down with everything because that would have wasted time. I didn't talk about everything in Wisconsin. We really just went to the core of it. And number three, the third thing is to briefly jot down what you've done so far. You may have tried several avenues that were kind of fruitless, and you don't want to spend precious time in the consultation going back over everything you did and having them do it as well. So I really had to think about it. I had to make a list of what I had done, which again, wasn't that much because I wasn't sure. So this consultation is focused on Irish research, and Kate has lots of great strategies and ideas for us. But if you don't have Irish ancestors, I really do encourage you to listen closely to the process, because that's going to be key. You're going to be able to apply that to lots of different areas in your genealogical research. The questions that she asks, her approach to finding the answers, you might be very pleasantly surprised that you're going to hear something that you can translate into your own research. So let's go see what can be accomplished in a 45-minute consultation with a genealogy expert. Did you get the details that I sent in?
I did, yes.
Okay.
Margaret Scully and Michael James Lynch.
Yes, and so I had an in-person interview with their granddaughter, my aunt, and she told me about County Clare and County Cork. when I made connections with some other people in the family, the Gillespies and the Barretts and stuff, they got information directly from people who knew Margaret Lynch and who spent lots of time with her. And they said Limerick, that she was from Limerick.
Okay.
And so
All right.
I sent you what I have in terms of census and her obituary and all that kind of, or at least I have those items. Nothing really says Limerick or anything.
So let me just make sure I have the right information, and I want to see, kind of ask how you know some of these things.
Yes.
So I looked at some of the census reports and, found her, and as I expect with most Irish ladies, her age varies from census to census.
Yes.
It seems like the older they get, the younger they are, and so they're good and old, and they're like, no, I'm even older than that.
Exactly.
So you have a date of 14 July 1841. Is that from her obituary, or is that something that your great aunt told you about, her date of birth?
My great aunt told me that. I'm going to pull up her obituary. Her obituary said that she was born in Limerick, Ireland. So this came from that family that I made a connection with. July 17th, 1839.
And and they're saying County Limerick, the aunt is saying County Cork.
Mm-hmm.
So where have you looked for her birth record, and where have you looked for their marriage record?
I have not. And I am really unsure whether or not the marriage record would be in the U.S. or
Ireland.
In Ireland. I spent a lot of time trying to look for a passenger list with not any success. And I was timid about going to Ireland and looking for records. So
I'm going to share my screen with you. I want to start actually with, Limerick and Cork are most likely going to be on this site. Okay, now this is a for-fee site, but it's the most comprehensive place to look for people here. And I'm going to just put Margaret's name in here and go ahead and that 1841 date. And the nice thing about this is you see it gives us a plus or minus 5 years.
Great.
So we'll search that, and that gives us a possibility of 55 birth or baptismal records. So we can narrow it down. We think it might be Limerick or it might be Cork. So let's just check both of those counties and see what they bring us. And it's 11 possibilities. I'm an open everything up at once person and then go back and see what it says, just because it works better for me. So I'm just right-clicking on each of these that says view, and then we'll go back and look at them. And because there's 11, there'll just be one on this back page. So what this shows us here is just, these are all church baptisms because it's before there would be any civil records. Civil baptisms, birth records would be 1864. And these are all Margaret Scully's. There's not a variation of the surname. I expected to see some that had maybe EY or something like that. This search engine will do that for us.
And now you have an 1839 Limerick, and I really actually trust that family more than I trust my aunt.
Your aunt. Let's just look at each of these because you also had parents' names here. Right? You said that somebody believed that her parents were. I'm looking to find this now. Joseph or James Scully and Bridget Madigan.
Yes.
Is that from your great aunt, or is that from the
That was side? From my great aunt, and I was looking through my notes. I couldn't find the record that it was a printout that they sent me years ago. But as I recall, there wasn't a real conflict on the Bridget Madigan. Okay,
then let's just look. That's an easy one to see. We'll be able to see really quickly, do we have anything that matches that? And so these are just transcripts of the parish records. John Scully and Catherine Russell, John Scully and Mary Slattery, Thade Scully, probably Thaddeus, and Catherine Bowles, Patrick and Kate, Patrick and Catherine, Daniel and Honora, Lawrence and Sarah, we can't read her last name.
Uh-oh.
Ed and Mary, Jeremiah and Mary, and Thomas and Nancy. So we don't have a baptismal record that just pops up right away. And there could be a variety of reasons for this, as you know. It could be that the records have been lost or destroyed or are just illegible. It could also be Margaret was older or younger than that 5 years on either side of 1841.
Right.
But that seemed to be pretty consistent what was in those census records that we looked at. So we have a couple options here. We can, I'm going to go ahead and close these out. We can go back and search again with a broader range of years. We could make this a 10-year search if we think it's possible that she was 1831 to 1851. Not many added on. There are only 3 additional ones. So let's just give them a quick peek while we're here, just in case. Cornelius and Catherine, that doesn't look like a good one. John and Johanna, and Daniel and Ellen. So that's not very helpful for us. The marriage record could be here. It could be in Wisconsin.
Right.
And we have 2 different places in Ireland that we could look for the marriage record. Do we know where Michael was from, by the way?
Well, I always thought he was from County Clare, but my aunt, or there was conflict between Cork and Clare, coming from different families. And I think I may have just found that report I told you about that they sent me. Joseph Scully and Bridget Madigan, and in the different things I got from my aunt, it seemed like Clare and Cork were the ones bouncing around, and I didn't ever hear Limerick until we talked to the people who were closer to her. I just realized something. As you were going through those, I saw Healy, and I was like, I know that. What is that? Michael James's Lynch's mother was supposedly, big question marks, Johanna Healy. And, I'm beginning to wonder because I could have sworn that was one of the names you just showed. I wonder if my aunt mixed that up.
I've added Clare in here if we County Clare just because they're close. Okay. So Ellen Lyons, Catherine Russell, Mary Slattery, Catherine Bowles. I'm also looking at these parishes.
Yes.
Because you had this parish of Kildysart, and I'm having trouble finding that. I'm finding some Dysart parishes, but not any, but I was looking in Cork, so they might be in other.
And I had the same thing. I never did find it anywhere. Okay.
Cartney, there, Honora Healy, and Daniel Scully. And that's County Cork.
So that one's interesting. I could have sworn there was one more Healy that you showed.
Let's keep looking. Kate Shaughnessy, Sarah, we couldn't read her last name, and Mary Hanlon. And Mary Quinlan.
Okay, I guess.
Then let me go to page 2. Well, there was a second page here. And then we have, so when I added Clare, I got nobody else, by the way, because I added County Clare to the mix, and we didn't get any additional names. So here's Nancy Healy.
Oh, and Thomas Scully, okay.
So we have Honora Healy and Nancy Healy. And then there's Catherine Fennessy and Johanna Toomey and Ellen Connell. And then I'm looking at their sponsors as well, John Healy and Catherine Twig. And over here, Patrick Scully and Honora Healy. So maybe the mother of this mother and a father or a brother there. We can look at a map and see where these are but since we're not really sure where the family was from, I'm not sure how helpful that would be, but it might be useful just to have a general idea of where these parishes are.
And is it helpful at all that there was this family story that her family was wealthy or had land, and perhaps
It is.
the husband lived on or worked for them? Would that single them out better?
It would, and actually that's one of the places I wanted to go look, is I want to look on Griffith's valuation.
Okay.
Because if the family had land, we should be able to find them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's where Inniscarra is. That kind of gives us an idea of its location. And then Coachford. Okay. Just to try to get, so it's further inland. Okay, so just kind of just giving me a general idea of where we are.
Mm-hmm.
So we can go ahead and check Griffith's valuation. I'm sure you're familiar with Ask About Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
I have used it before. And so we can just put in the Scully surname. And in case it's spelled a little bit differently, let's look for it. And you had that information then said, what was he was James Scully? What you had sent to me said either Joseph or James, and I'm curious about that being two different, the possibilities there.
And those came from my aunt.
From your aunt.
I don't have
Let's
documents.
just leave it. Okay, let's just leave it at Scully, and I don't think we can do more than one at a time. So we can start with Cork and see what we come up with. Oh, we have 172 possibilities there.
Oh my.
So this is a way of being able to, if it's possibly James, we've got neither of our birth records we found had James for the father,
Right.
by the way. We had Daniel and we had Thomas. So this is a lot to go through. We could go back and just keep it to just James.
And I'm thinking maybe Limerick is a better target, since they seemed,
check that.
When I found it again in her obituary, I thought that's more than my aunt had.
Right. Okay, let's try it. Okay.
Oh.
Not too many, so that's nice to see. And then we can just start by looking at the details really quickly to see. So James is the tenant and he's a landlord. I'm hoping to find one where James is the landlord. I'm being really hopeful here.
So this is kind of like tax records, is that right?
Right. Well, the Griffiths valuation is they're looking to see who has how much land for tax purposes exactly. Mm-hmm. And what the page will show you. So here's James Scully down in Kiana, and he has this piece of land that looks like 2AB, so it's a really narrowed down little place. His landlord is Thomas Noonan, and he has only a house, no land attached to that. And he was renting it for 11 shillings, or what the value of it was 11 shillings here for that. So that doesn't seem like a wealthy landowner,
right?
Or that sort of thing. So let's try this next James, because they're not out there.
There is at the bottom, yeah.
So, okay, and again, only a house and 15 shillings. So again, not somebody that I would think would be having a young man working. Was it as a groom for them?
Yeah.
Yeah, the horse groom. That doesn't seem too likely. If they had a large house, yes, that would make sense, even if it's just a house in town. And if you see...
There's John and James Scully.
There's James, okay. So he's got from Thomas O'Grady, house and land, and this is significantly more. It's 15 acres, 3 roods, and 29 perches. So, and it's worth, what do we have here again? The value of the land was £7. Yeah, £7. Nope, that's John Scully. Here's James, 17 pounds. So that's a good chunk of money that's worth.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of interesting. What I want to do is just see if there were any. There's a lot of Scullys. There's John Jr., John, I presume, Sr., who's leasing his land from John Jr., and we have James. So we've got a lot of Scullys living here in was this Baliania? And I don't see any Lynches here, but if Michael was the son of a farmer, or somebody not of wealth, I mean, he's going to be a groom. He's most likely not to be from a wealthy family. So this
Would
is
that
a
be
good
common to
possibility.
leave your county and go to another county to work if he was from Clare or Cork?
That's unusual, unless he
Okay.
knew somebody,
Mhm.
had family, or that said, I know somebody who can hire you. Because when you left your county, you left everybody who knew you and who knew what you could do.
Right.
And so you don't have anybody who can really give you a reference. It's just your own word. I'm good with horses, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if he was not from Limerick, but it could be he may have had like I said, somebody who knew somebody who could help him. And let's just look at this last one just before we.
And that's what made me suspicious, that maybe that they married in America because they were from different places.
Mm-hmm. They may even have met in America.
Yeah.
And married there. So here's James Scully, and all he has, again, is just a house worth 10 shillings. I think this is our most likely candidate if the family story is true.
Mm-hmm.
And you know this. These family stories always have some kernel of truth to them, even if they seem outlandish, and it ends up being there's something that's true. Her parents were wealthy, or he was a groom, even if it wasn't this romantic falling in love with the groom and running away and getting married. That's one of the things that raised a little question for me. If they married in the church, the priest is going to know who she is, and she's underage. And he's going to expect her parents to give permission.
Right.
So that's going to make it much harder for them to be able to do that, to do it that way. There is the possibility that they just had a marriage by license that's expensive, more expensive than by banns, by getting married in the church. And again, how's it going to get paid? Who's paying for that then? 16-year-old girls didn't have a lot of pocket change in the 1840s. So there's some questions there on that one, but we can look for that. What I would do is this, because we do have, this is a clue, we do have a James Scully, and we have a town that he's in. And what's great fun about these also, this is this one right here, but you may want to spend some time looking for children of James Scully. Margaret could have been baptized as just girl or infant. They may not have chosen a name for her when she was married or when she was born. That may be why her birth record isn't showing up, her baptismal record.
Oh.
So you could come back over here, and we know this is the parish that we're looking for, and we're in Limerick. So we could try again. And we can just look for any Scully. And we're in Limerick. And the father is James. Let's just, we've got a big range here. So Catherine, William, Bridget, Thomas, Agnes, nobody that looks.
And those are all the names of her children.
Yes. Well, surprise.
Yeah.
What I thought was, so yeah, we don't have anybody who is, nobody jumps out as being just baby or girl or infant, which is what I was hoping to find. But you could look at each one of those. Do we have a middle name for Margaret? Or was she only ever Margaret? Was there even a middle initial?
No, just Margaret. And I've always had the middle name for her husband.
But not for her.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we can look at these and see where they are and see if you start to get, things start to get narrowed. So this is, okay. I'm looking, I've got to go figure out what the parish is for that. That's our old Cork people.
Bridget Madigan? Didn't you just have that on your screen?
Oh, I can pull up what I just had. there's Bridget Madigan and James Scully, whose daughter was Catherine Scully.
That's the names.
That's your right person. That's your right person. I mean, the right family. Okay, let's go back and, so that was Catherine. Now let's put Bridget in here as well. And so let's see, we've got 8 people here. I'm just looking at some of these. Okay, so Catherine, there's Thomas and Bridget Madigan. There's John, and that's Bridget Connell, so we can eliminate that. Michael. And there's Patrick. Do we already have Patrick? No, it's Thomas. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And there's Bridget, the daughter of Bridget. And Daniel. And there's Maria. And then we have Catherine. So this is the right, this is the age. Yours, July of 1841. This is January of 1841. I'm looking to see if we have any girls who are July. That's February of 1831.
And actually, her obituary said July 17th of 1839.
1839. Okay. 34, 46, 36. Well, we found the right parents to match. The next thing to do is let's look at the parish registers themselves. And that's the beauty about this, is that this links you straight to the National Library of Ireland's parish registers.
Oh, it sure does.
And this
Wow.
is for that specific parish. So we're looking for baptisms, and they said 1839.
And if somebody
Is
wanted
what-
to, yes, 1839, and it was July. In the obituary, it says July 17th.
Right, so it's July 17th. Okay. And if somebody wanted to, you started to ask a question.
Oh, I was going to say, if
Apologize.
somebody wanted to do what you're doing, you said that it's a subscription service. Is it something that you can?
Roots Ireland is,
Mhm. And it connects
but
over to
this
here.
site is free.
Oh,
Mhm.
great.
This is a free site. So this is what if you go to the National Library of Ireland,
Mhm.
and you just click on their family history research, and the very first thing that pops up is visit the Catholic Parish Registers.
Super.
And it is not indexed by name. You have to know who you're looking for and where. But if you have an idea of the parish, then you can enter the parish. And so I'm just, so there's, whoops, it's not the parish, but this one is, whatever we have here, Kilcolman. So, and then they give you, we have a couple options here, which is the correct Diocese of Limerick. And then they give you a little map to show you where it's located. And then they tell you they have baptismal records starting from 1827, going to 1843, and then picking up in January of 44 through 59. And so they're all by separate rolls of microfilm. So here, and then you can, as we did, we chose baptisms, the date, and the month. And I want to just scroll sort of through the whole month to see, and make this as big as we can so we can see it.
Hey, would that be a way also to put in that funny Kildesart that my aunt said, and it would kind of go, yeah, we don't have anything? That would be a way to check that, right?
Right, and I did try that.
You did.
I looked for that one because as you type in, there's giving me some kill. I want to start with it, and then but it's here.
Where's?
It's in County Clare, not County Cork.
Ah.
So when I was looking for County Cork, I wasn't finding any, but there is a County Clare.
Well, and
there are
it's very likely that's where Margaret's husband was from. And I could see my aunt maybe mixing things a little bit. So
let's just look at this again.
Yeah,
I'm curious now. Oh, I can't get back on this for some reason. I want to see where this is, located. Look, there's Kilcolman and here's Kildesart, across the river from each other here, or the inlet there. So that makes it a little bit met each other someplace.
Sure.
Or even it's not.
They're very
not
close.
perfect, but it's at least they're not on opposite ends of island is what I was thinking
Yes.
about there. Okay, so baptisms, 1839, and I think we're still in July. And this is great because if you find what you want, you can download it for free. You have a copy of that register there. So here's July the 3rd, and she was supposed to have been baptized on and it just goes from the 3rd to the 5th to the 22nd. We've got Thomas and Eleanor, and that looks like John and another Thomas, just in case something got squeezed in at the bottom here.
Would it have been typical for an Irish Catholic to kind of just say the baptismal date as the birth date, or would they have differentiated their birth date? Because it said birth
possible.
date in the obit. And I know that sometimes baptisms happen afterward.
Afterwards, exactly. They can happen several days or probably not more than a week afterwards.
Okay.
So that's what I'm just looking at. That's an illegitimate child. We don't need that one. So I'm not seeing any, and then we'll come over here, as you suggested, to look in some of these June ones. Margaret of Thomas Culhane and Ellen. So that's not our person. It's nice to see a Margaret, but we don't like Margaret. So I'm not finding one here. The record seems to be pretty intact. We don't have missing pages. But it appears that July of 1839, there was no child baptized in this parish to those parents. That doesn't mean that she didn't exist.
Right.
We may have to find a different date. And that's the hard work. You could literally scroll through every page of this looking for the children. It's helpful to have these pieces of information because you can sort of do the math from there. You can say, well, there's unlikely to be a child born between September of 36 and 9 months later to this family. So, but this is at least verification that we do have a man named James Scully who married a woman named Bridget Madigan. They were in County Limerick. They were having children at the time that your Margaret was born.
Yes.
So this is a good thing.
Yeah.
And you've got siblings that you can track them down, potentially. What I would normally be doing for somebody else who does a consultation like this is give them these screenshots so they have this information and can go research from there. These are the siblings of your Margaret.
Yes.
And see what you can find from there about them. Let's look, since we do have her in Limerick, let's just look for a marriage record. Just, why not?
Yeah, and so would you go back to Roots Ireland to do that? Oh, they have
I'm
marriage.
going to do that here, and then they have marriage records. They have baptismal records, marriage records, some burial and death. They have you can see, some of these are transcriptions. Well, they're all transcriptions, and some of them will provide you with links. The parish records will get you links to those.
Great.
So let's do a marriage record for Margaret Scully. They had to have been married by 1855 because they're living as husband and wife in 1860.
Right.
In the United States. And so we're just I'm going to take Mama off and Daddy even, because so often they're not included. But we know he's Michael. And it seemed like he went by Michael. He didn't go by Patrick.
Right. I think he's Michael James. Is that correct? Let me look again.
Or Michael James, I mean.
Michael James, yes. In fact, at one point, they told me they thought he was a junior, but...
Okay. Well, I'm not finding any. I'm just going to take Limerick off because who knows where they... So it's giving me nothing for that. I'm going to take his first name off. We're going to just trim it down as much as we can. So here we have two Catherine Scullys.
There's that Catherine again, getting married at the right time.
in the right time in County Cork.
County
Let's see
Cork.
who she's marrying. Oh, it's March and Lynch.
Ah,
Doesn't seem very close
right.
for that one. So, and then we'll check this other Catherine. It's County Kildare is not at all right. And interestingly enough, that's the same people. So they're just right across the... Okay. That didn't help. The other place to try looking in Irish records, this is a free site, which is my favorite price to pay for anything.
Yeah.
irishgenealogy.ie.
Mm-hmm.
And because they married between 1845 and 1860, there would potentially be a civil record of their marriage. Birth records and death records were 1864, but marriages were 1845.
Okay.
So let's try Margaret again. And
And is this all of Ireland?
this will be for all of Ireland, yes.
Okay.
I'm making this really, really broad because we don't know exactly when. You have to tell them you're not a robot. And then they ask for your name. But John Grenham explains you can just put your initials in, and they're happy with that too. So no Margaret Scullys.
Interesting.
At all. Which, let's just try Michael and see if we have him. We'll probably have a dozen or more. Okay. And here they automatically sort by relevance. I like to see them by date.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's Michael Lynch marrying Mary McLaughlin, marrying Anne Lewin, marrying Jane Sheldrick. And now we have Michael McCormick marrying Abley Lynch. So you'll get Michael, the name Michael, and the name Lynch. It's not always Michael Lynch's.
Right.
Matilda French, Mary Colnut, Margaret, but Hill, and then Alicia Massey. Just because that's close, I want to just see. So again, it gives you just real basic information, but then for most of the records, you can get the image.
Wonderful.
As well. And again, it's all for the wonderful price of free. And I doubt this is our person. She's a widow in 1856.
Right.
And her father was William Hill. So,
wow, if that really searched all of Ireland, it sounds like maybe
really
they married in the U.S.
So, and because you've looked so hard already for passenger lists, that makes it more difficult. I went and looked in the Wisconsin, since that's where they ended up. I said, let's assume they got married in Wisconsin. That's a good assumption to start with. And they have what they tell us about their records there for birth records is, or marriage records is, you have to get them someplace else actually. But they give you the list of the county name, births, marriage, deaths, and marriages. So we scroll down to Polk because that's where they landed again. And they have marriage records as early as 1855.
Which is great.
The place to go to that you can get them is this Wisconsin Historical Society. So we can just look for Miss Scully getting married. And again, you can refine it by the time period. We know it has to be the 1850s. And we know we need, this is just birth records and a historical, I don't see any marriage records for that. Okay. Let's go back and try, let's try looking for him. Okay. Is Polk County on here? There's Polk County. Bridget Lynch, 1904. Mary Lynch, 87. Simon Lynch, 1902. And James Lynch, 1902.
I think Bridget Lynch is their daughter.
Is their daughter? Let's just look at it and see. And that's all the information that they're going to give us.
Oh, it doesn't say who she married.
No, see possible spouse matches. Henry Rogers.
Maybe not. Okay.
Maybe not. So But this, again, that's a dead end again. I'm sorry.
That's
But
okay.
it's another tool to use to look for, okay, where else?
So,
If
Kate, they
you,
said that they had marriages back to 1855, but
Mhm.
but we did. Was it that we got a no result, or would they did not have them in this database?
Well, that's a great question. So let's see what they say about it. This is, okay, 3 million records. So do they have all of them? 3 million records is a lot, but and they're not.
So that
helping me
list
out too
that
much.
list that said that they started in 1855, was that just they started, or I don't remember if that page said that they actually have those.
Earliest registration dates by county is what this is. And so what they're telling us is, I went to Wisconsin Department of Health Services, and I started out with vital records. And then I said, oh, look, genealogy, that's probably what I want. But I wanted to see when their records started first. And so it tells us, as we keep looking down here, genealogy, not a lot of help. So, and it's in-person genealogy research. Appointments are required, frequently asked questions there, and that's what information can you access. Marriage records, the earliest ones are filed through 1867. There are indexes as well. And then are your indexes available online?
Prior to 1907.
Provides. And so they can't, that's where I went to at that point. Okay, they do have the records back that far, but there could be a different county that they married in. Although our search that we did over here wasn't coming up with anything. So then I'm wondering, did they land someplace else and get married? Or even they settled someplace briefly and married, and then as a couple moved out to Wisconsin? That's a tough one.
Yeah.
You had talked about possibility of them coming through Canada.
That was family story.
So I went to, this is the Library and Archives Canada, and their Irish genealogy and family history. And what I was looking for is what records they have for immigration.
Right.
And so I'm looking just for the time periods.
So
a
immigrants
database of
before
32,000 immigrants who got a quarantine station. So we'll pop that one open before 1865. Montreal Immigrant Society provide transportation. So that's possibly, it might go that far. And then those passenger lists are too far. I think, to be honest, the best thing we've found so far are these people.
Yeah.
These siblings. And they may provide some information for us that would tell you where to look from there.
So researching this family, the collateral people, seeing if it somehow leads me back to Margaret?
Yes, because one of them may have also immigrated to the United States.
Right.
They may have moved to the same city or the same county and just be, especially if it's a sister who married, there may be something that'll help you there, even an obituary for one of the siblings.
Right. Okay. And if I find their children's names, then it might be worth searching the U.S. Census around 1860 and try to find some of them. Okay.
Now, because it's not the typical Irish research where we don't know who Margaret's parents are. That's usually what happens as well. And then we run into a brick wall because we have Margaret, but we don't know anything about her. So that's not the issue here. There didn't seem to be any evidence that her husband served in the Civil War.
Right.
I looked a little bit for that because I thought, well, a pension file, you just never know who's going to show up in a pension file. But now that we've identified her siblings here, I mean, it would be good to know if any of them showed up in the United States.
He held a
And
lot of official offices while he was prominent in his town. Would holding offices like supervisor, postmaster, are there going to potentially be records in Wisconsin
Yes.
for some of these things?
Yes, I would think so. You had a book you'd mentioned in here that I've all the records I could find of it, it's not available.
Yeah.
It's not been digitized. The Recollections of 1876 Polk County.
Mm-hmm.
I assume that there's some good information there about his life, what he did.
So keep digging on the U.S.
Keep
side.
digging on the U.S. side, and then over here in the Irish side, fill in the names of her siblings now that you've got them, and pull and trace them forward. You may be able to find, if you determine that they all stayed in Ireland, then that's a piece of information you didn't have before.
Right.
And maybe you can, track their children down to the present, and who knows what people know, or what they have in some old family Bible or stack of letters that they just never threw away. We just don't know. If Michael was a civil servant, he likely was able to read and write.
Right.
And so that increases the likelihood that there could be letters that somebody still has. So you just don't know till you keep digging.
Well, this gives me lots of different leads, which is good. At least something new to look for.
I'm sorry that we didn't have any great luck, but this is sort of what I expect. Actually, I'm thrilled with what we found for Ireland in the 1840s.
Oh, yeah. To find this couple is like a big deal. I mean, I know there's something significant in the couple.
To be able to say, yes, that is who her parents were, James Scully and Bridget Madigan. And then I'm curious about the sponsors. We've got Maria Scully is the sponsor of this baby's birth. And who else do we have? Any other?
Lots of O'Neills.
Got lots of Neils and O'Neills in there. It could be family friends. So, yeah. And then I'd go back and try to find him in the Griffiths valuation and see where the land was. And I doubt that their marriage record exists, but now that I'm saying it, I'm going to just look. Really
for the parents.
For the parents. Just because wouldn't it be nice to see that?
Yes.
Okay, that's too many matches. I need to get it narrowed down to Limerick. Bridget's name in there.
And would they supposedly have all marriages?
If the records exist. And that's one thing I didn't do, and I should have. So here is Lisa Total. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to keep that one. And then I'm going to go back here. This is John Grenham's website. And it is, I love it. He doesn't give you any documents. He tells you where to find things.
Right.
So place names and that sort of thing. So we're looking at, it was Coleman. Not too many. Okay.
Oh.
So, and what this tells us then, civil parish of Limerick, and church records is what I was looking for. And so Catholic church records, marriages go from 1828 to 1843, and then 1844 to 1880. And there are no burial records.
Pretty good.
So, because this helps you to know if you're beating your head against a brick wall that's never going to be resolved. If you're looking for their birth records, we're probably not going to find them.
Right.
Because the earliest baptismal record is 1827.
But for the parents would have been married during that time frame of the marriage records.
They should be, because they've got a child, 1831, I think. Maria was their oldest. So there should be, theoretically,
Right.
because we've got marriage records starting in 1828, unless they married earlier than that and didn't have any children. But let me check 35 and back.
Oh,
Ta-da!
ta-da!
There it is.
Oh my gosh.
And then again, we can get the parish register. And when did they marry? June 1830. Okay. Marriage. 1830. June. Apply. And it's just this terrible little...
Oh my.
What was our date? June 13th. Okay. And where are we? Give me months. I can't see any months. 22nd, 22nd, 22nd.
Is that June?
23rd. And must be the top of this page. There's 13th. And yep.
Ah, Scully.
So, married, yep. Reverend, looks like, I can't read what his name is there. But yes, Jacobus, so James Scully, and Brigida Madigan. And Jacob Keene and Maria Keene were their witnesses. So there's their marriage record.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Unfortunately, they never tell us who their parents are. But
Right.
you've got that information. So that's helpful.
That's awesome.
And the nice thing then, when you go back, again, looking at John Grenham's site, he lists all the kinds of records that are available. Here's headstone transcriptions. These are census type records. So we've got 1823 tithe books, or here is, different records, and he tells you where to find them.
Oh,
This is an LDS film, so it's at Family History Library, or possibly even online. And so you can find out what things there are. Potentially, you see there are records that go back to the 1500s for this parish. And it's just a matter of, if your family, there's land rentals. So it's possibly a possibility of being able to trace them back. So, yeah. So we got at least a little bit of information. We know who her parents are, and we know when and where they married.
Right.
And all
right.
her siblings.
And
And so you've got some American research to do and some Irish research to do now.
I'm still straddling the pond.
You still are, yeah.
It was a fantastic consultation for me. To find James and Bridget was amazing. Okay, so I know we have to wrap up. I have another webinar like in 2 minutes, but I found Michael's death certificate, and it turned out that he died in Stillwater, Minnesota. And if you look on a map, it's right over the county line, because Farmington is right there on the edge. And that's where the marriage certificate was. Stillwater, Minnesota. They were married in St. Michael's Church in April of 1860, which is why I find them in the 1860 census as a married couple. Let me tell you, doing this has absolutely re-energized my research. It has been really hard just to dig into work, because all I can do is think about continuing this. I have found more of her siblings. I'm finding them in the U.S. Census. Stay tuned, because there's more to come. If you want to do a consultation like this, I hope that you'll use our link, legacytreegenealogist.com/genealogygems. And if you really want a bigger project, there's even special discounts there for you on the bigger projects as well. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you got some great ideas. I love talking to you on the chat, and I can't wait to talk to you next week here at 11s with Lisa. Thanks so much, you guys.
Resize and adjust the image until you get the frame you want.